Welcome, heathens and witches, to the Horn
and Cauldron
podcast. Yeah, it's we're back at it again. This is John. This is Julie.
Yep.
This is the podcast. I'm literally never going to commit these intros to memory.
I think the 8 regular listeners know that by now.
Well, every time I'm going to let you know. I'm forgetful. Because I forgot that I already let you know. That's how that works. Yeah. Anywho, so it is that holiday season. We have spent the last 3 solid days decorating our house, literally from the moment we get up until 2-3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
which is ridiculous.
Yeah. And our house
great in here.
Is just sub 800 square feet.
Yeah,
right?
It's 750 square feet for our house.
Yeah. So we don't have a large house, so we'll let you figure out what that means. Yeah.
We'll post pictures on the socials.
Yeah.
It looks great. It's very festive. We're very happy about it. We this is totally an aside, but just deal with it. It fits the theme. We watched this Christmas decorating show
on Netflix.
And this Mr. Christmas or whatever the heck was just we fucking loved the show. It was so much fun. Just these ridiculous things this guy was doing to decorate houses, over the top stuff. And so we're all right, well,
and we hadn't decorated yet
hold
because
our beers, I guess.
We've spent a pretty good portion of the holiday season being sick.
Under the weather, yeah.
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 We're feeling better, finally.
Yeah, pretty much as soon as we started feeling better, we're just all right, we have a bunch of shit we have to catch up on. We got all the catching up that we had to get done, and then, go to the store, get last-minute decorations. We didn't need very much. We only needed a few things and, a tree.
Turns out, last-minute decorations, as far as, greenery and artificial trees go, is generally on sale at this point in time. So we saved enough that we were able to buy a Christmas tree.
Yeah, our living tree was literally essentially free to us because of the 25% off we got or whatever the heck from buying Christmas decorations late in the season. I mean, I guess it was limited, but we got everything that we wanted to get.
Yeah, we got exactly what we wanted. And in fact, there was more stuff there when we went just a few days ago than there was when we went middle of November.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because we had tried to get started super, not super early, but before Thanksgiving, start collecting and figuring out what we were going to do for the house.
Because we were planning on being decorated from Thanksgiving all the way to Christmas.
Nothing available at all. It was a freaking nightmare, man. Even the totes we needed weren't even available. It was crazy how short everything was. But so we got all the stuff.
Sick during
from
that shopping trip.
And we got sick from that shopping trip. Flu, nothing serious or nothing. But
we were fine. Yeah, it's okay.
But so the house is all decorated up. We're all festive. It's we're finally done.
Yeah, Yule is technically tomorrow.
We got the house decorated
Christmas
in time for Yule.
Is in a few days, and we are okay, these decorations, they're staying up to Imbolc.
Yeah. Yeah, right? What's up, Midsummer Party? You're going to see us have Christmas decoration stuff still.
That's probably not that far off. I'm sure that some Christmas decorations are probably going to
stay up. Yeah.
Just because
but
that's
also,
how we do
putting
things.
up Christmas decorations required us to, essentially re-engineer huge portions of shelving in the house.
A thing that we had been needing to do
anyway. As well as, reorganize the entire living room to be able to fit all of the Christmas stuff, because we have, Tiny Town, a Christmas Tiny Town. Also, get in on Christmas Tiny Towns. They're adorable. But so we have a Christmas Tiny Town, but we don't really have a tiny space for it.
Well, we don't have a large space for our tiny town.
Yeah, because it takes up a huge amount of space.
Yeah, it takes up basically our whole altar.
Yeah.
And now also a space in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Because we found some Halloween Town stuff, and so that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's getting out of hand. Don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal.
It's okay.
But yeah, anywho, we decided to be festive, get everything festive in the house or what have you, and so we got that going, and then now that we're done, we're ready to record this podcast, which is Yule 103, which is a look into a very, very specific part
yes.
of
yes.
Yule. And all of our 103s are...
They're all going to be a deep dive into a very specific aspect that is somewhat related to either the holiday or Sabbat or blot.
Yeah.
That happens.
Focusing a bit more on the north side.
Focusing a bit more on the north side of things
available.
when I'm able to. And if that sort of thing isn't available, then it'll be something that's sort of seasonal. But all the blots and the Sabbats are relatively seasonal anyways. So we're kind of taking some deep dives on stuff. So this year, we are taking a deep dive on the Wild Hunt.
Yeah.
But first, a little bit about Yule. So Yule starts on, technically, Yule starts on the winter solstice, which is 12/21. That is probably today, if you're listening to this the day it comes out. And that the winter solstice is the longest night of the year. And usually Yule ends on January 1st. Originally, Yule lasted, Yule was like a month, but it actually was 2 months. It was like Yule 1 and Yule 2, basically, which took place between late November and early January.
Yeah.
And that's like the most ancient form of
it's
celebrating
like
Yule.
Yule time, Christmas time. Like Christmas as like the one day everything explodes is a little bit more of a modern take on it.
Yeah.
Because Christmas time is generally like a week or a couple of weeks or like sometimes 24 days. And there are things where like places where Christmas, like even Christmas time was celebrated from basically from Christmas, from the solstice, all the way through till like mid-January or whatever. Yeah. So the idea of it being like a single day celebration is like kind of more of a modern
thing. It is
thing,
really more of a modern thing.
But that applies to functionally all of these blots, all of these Sabbats, and festivals. Because, like, you did that shit for, like, pretty much as long as you could justify partying for.
But also, like, if you think about it from, like, an ancient perspective, like, they don't have, like, snowplows for the roads and that sort of thing. So, like, if you lived in ye old times, TM, then you would have had a harder time getting to celebrate, Christmas at somebody's house or even town and on Christmas. Christmas was usually celebrated with your close family, the people you lived with, basically, and Yule tide, which is the season, more or less, although again, different interpretations sort of are different time frames. Like, there's like storms and stuff. So like, you're not going to plan a Christmas party in the ancient times when people have to walk or they have to go by horse or cart or something like that. And then find out that there's like a big storm gonna be there at that night. Like, that's just unrealistic. So people would sort of get together whenever the weather was good enough for them to do so, basically. Yeah. And that's kind of one of the reasons why Yule is such a long time originally, or in ancient times, is because people wanted to still get together and party for as long as they could, but they also didn't want to die doing it.
Totally. So don't put pressure on yourself if you're celebrating Yule a little off of the exact day of it. We say that kind of stuff all the time. Like, you don't need to... That is
like a drinking game for us.
You don't need to like always celebrate it on the day of, or what have you. And, we'll always reiterate that. But, so Yule is like standardly like a big fest, right? Parties, bonfires, all of that sort of stuff. Yule log dancing. Festive decorations,
wassailing, Yule goat, Yule boar. That's usually the one you eat, though.
Yule goat, Yule boars,
and of course presents.
Anything involving Krampus or Belsnickels, or like beating kids with a bundle of sticks, or like putting your shoes out to get like a little thing in there, or just like giving assholes coal.
Yeah. So if you want more information about the Yule itself, we talk a lot more about Yule in Yule 101. That's episode number 2.
Our second episode ever.
Yeah.
So
that's probably
rough.
I'm sure that's a wild one to listen to.
Yeah. Or way more professional.
Or not. We're not sure.
Yeah.
Yule 102, that's episode 28, as well as Hidden Heathenry in Modern Holidays, which is episode 26. So you can get more about Yule there. So for now, we're going to talk about the Wild Hunt. But before we start, you're probably wondering why the Wild Hunt. And that's because depending on the source that you're looking at, the Wild Hunt is something that has typically taken place from a folklore standpoint anytime between Halloween to Christmas, but most usually the 12 nights. So like Christmas to 12th night. And that's really once you hit like, Christianity, sort of taking
more
over
modern,
Europe. So there's your other drinking game
things,
there. Yeah. But basically, the Wild Hunt was something that happened sort of like at the dead of winter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Wild Hunt is a group of ghostly figures pursuing an entity, which is either another ghostly entity, like an animal or a person, or a demon, or hapless humans out at the wrong time. The group of ghostly figures is sometimes seen and heard, but sometimes only heard and not seen. The hunt is usually led by...
Unless they're mime ghosts, then they're seen, not heard.
That's horrifying.
Silent.
I'm not okay with that. No,
yeah.
We're gonna strike that from the
Sometimes
record.
trapped behind barriers that you can't see. Just
No.
get through here.
No. We're striking mime ghost from the record. I'm not okay with that. That's too adjacent to clowns, and no.
Real question of the day: is a mime ghost more or less scary than a clown ghost? I'm gonna say less scary because a clown ghost is gonna make fucking horrifying clown noises, and a mime ghost dead silent. You know what you do? Close your eyes. What's he gonna do? You can't do nothing. Can't make no scary noises. Isn't there?
Yeah.
Right? It's just a miming about in the house. Whatever, right?
I'm still not okay with the mime ghost. So the hunt is usually led by a deity. Oftentimes it's led by Odin, Lucifer, Gwyn ap Nudd, or even Archangel Gabriel. It can also be led by a historical figure, such as the Danish king Valdemar Atterdag, King Arthur, Sir Francis Drake, and Baba Yaga have also been known to put that. I was going to put Baba Yaga under deities. I must have messed that one up and put it underneath legendary figures.
Regular, actual motherfuckers. Baba Yaga, regular, actual motherfucker.
Yeah.
Different
so
thing.
Apparently Keanu Reeves sometimes leads the Wild Hunt.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I forget that he's called Baba Yaga.
There's 3 whole movies about that.
Yeah.
So now you guys know what the real life version of the Wild Hunt is.
Yeah. Yeah. Just watch a John Wick movie. Happy Christmas.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so many of the oldest stories say that the leader of the hunt was someone, usually a lord or a lady, because there are women that have led the Wild Hunt in a variety of different folklore sources. And some of these sources say that the person leading the hunt loved hunting so much that they were either cursed or blessed to hunt for all time. And they sort of became the leader of the Wild Hunt.
Why not both?
Time. Yeah. There are also some goddesses who have been said to lead the Wild Hunt. There's Frigg or Hulda, which is Odin's wife in either the Norse or in German mythology. Diana, the Roman goddess of the hunt, has been said to lead the Wild Hunt. For obvious reasons. Yeah. I didn't see references to Artemis specifically, so I don't know if that is
regular hunt. Artemis, Wild Hunt, different god.
Yeah, right. So I don't know if that's a particular reason or not, or whether it's just because at some point they decided to use Diana because that worked better for Latin than Artemis, but I don't know. And we also have Berchta, who visits homes at night during Christmas on 12th night. So she is purported to lead the Wild Hunt, but in a very specific way. So she visits homes at night from Christmas to 12th night. She knows if children and servants are good or not. And if you're good, she leaves you a small silver coin in your boot or your cup or your pot or something like that. Yeah. And if you were bad, she'd slit your belly, remove your guts, and stuff your body with straw and pebbles.
Yeah, also reasonable. Turn you into a scarecrow. What are you, a shitty little kid? We're going to stuff you, make you a scarecrow. Yeah, that is a significantly larger threat than a piece of coal. So I'm just saying, Santa, way less violent than Perchta. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah. She was also very similar to Frigg, but she sort of morphed into this figure that was like half woman, half beast, and she was known to wear large cloaks and hoods to hide her form. It's unclear exactly when or
like
why.
Beast from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
You gotta wear a hood.
Well, it's unclear exactly like when or why she started wearing these hoods. This could have been a thing where she was always half woman, half beast.
Yeah. I mean, Gaston was a bit of a judgy jerk about that beast stuff, so I get it. Sure.
Yeah. Or it could be part of the Christianization of Europe, turning her into sort of a monster.
Yeah.
I don't really know. That is a deep dive for another time.
Yeah,
so
I think maybe she had a little bit of a hand in turning herself into a monster. She's stuffing kids, so fucking
and servants.
Yeah, and servants. Yeah, so kind of a nightmare. But
only if they were bad.
Yeah, don't be bad.
Yeah,
makes the Christmas songs real different over there.
Yeah, I mean, we got like
whichever.
Santa at like a level 2, leaving you stockings with coal. Yeah. We got Krampus at like a level 7, Bina, and then we got Percha at like a level 52. Because she's just like murdering you.
When he just shows up in that house and is just like, "Hey, I'm just here to scare the shit out of your kids," and just like terrorizes those kids, scares the shit out of them, and then gives one of them a gold coin and is like, "You're pretty all right. Here you go." Boy, those kids are going to be the nicest kids.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what.
Yeah. So those are all the leaders of the Wild Hunt. And there's often a host of people, others participating in the hunt who are not necessarily the leaders. They're generally described as being made up of Valkyries and fairies, other deities, ghostly dogs, wolves of sorts, as well as spirits of the dead. There are also some stories that say that werewolves were part of the Wild Hunt, and very specifically, they would steal beer and sometimes food in the houses they passed by. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Many of the spectral figures also rode horses, and it is said that the horses had 2, 3, 6, or 8 legs and eyes of fire. I want you to think about a 2-legged horse right now.
Actually scarier than an 8-legged horse. 8-legged horse, spider horse. A little scary.
I mean...
2-legged horse, very scary. All right, that horse lives in 1 dimension less than we do physically. It's an absolute nightmare. 3-legged horse, that's just an injured horse. Very sad.
That's true.
6-legged horse, listen. That's concerning, but not too bad.
Now, there are also 4-legged horses, I'm assuming. But in the stories that I read, where it didn't talk about
you can't prove 4-legged horses exist. Nobody can.
Right? Well, what even is a horse?
You guys don't see the tinfoil underneath this Christmas hat I'm wearing, but 4-legged horses don't exist. Only in 2, 3, 6, and 8.
So... in a lot of the stories I read, it talked about the horses, and there were ones that didn't talk about how many legs the horse had, and I'm assuming in those the horses had the standard
amount of legs.
4 legs.
Yeah. I mean, listen, unless this guy's seen so many 6-legged horses, he's just like, regular fucking horse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know.
Technically, centaur, 6-legged horse. He's
fair.
got arm legs.
Yeah, fair. The horses also often had eyes of fire and breathed fire from their noses.
Sure, yeah.
So pretty horrifying things happening with these horses.
Sure,
all
yeah.
in all.
I mean, a giant spider the size of a fucking horse that breathes fire is essentially a nightmare. But sure, yeah, Wild Hunt, rock and roll.
New nightmare unlocked. Thanks for that one.
Yeah, if you have a chance, total aside, but it's about horses, so it kind of works. Look up what it would look like if horses, instead of having a standard horse mouth at the front of the face, had a dog-style mouth. Look up pictures of horses with dog-style mouths. It is, you're welcome, the most terrifying thing you've ever seen in your life. So, rock and roll.
Yeah, it's pretty
brought to you by other people's nightmares. Next.
Yeah, next. So, if you encountered the hunt in your travels, or even just being at home, it could mean that a disaster, plague, war, or death might be coming in your near future. You might also be carried off to the land of the Fae or the land of the dead if you ran into the Wild Hunt. But also, sometimes people nearby were quote unquote summoned in their sleep.
Yeah, if you're awake and you see a sleeping person walking into the street and they get picked up by a bunch of ghosts riding giant spiders the size of horses, you go back inside, you close that door, just put some circle of salt around you and go to sleep. Sleep in that salt circle forever. Never leave.
Yeah. Now, there are a few tales of people encountering the hunt and being rewarded with things like money, gold, the leg of a slain animal.
Of course, the hunt would say that if they're trying to get you.
Yeah. And sometimes the leg of the slain animal was enchanted to be impossible to get rid of. I'm sorry,
that's an award?
The only way to get rid of the cursed limb was to ask a member of the Wild Hunt for salt, which they can't give. I don't know why. So they'd have to take back the leg. Yeah.
Was this leg animus or did it lack animus?
It is.
Was it a meat leg? Then that's disgusting.
It's mostly...
Or was it an animus leg, which is just fucking horrifying?
Sometimes it's both. Sometimes the Wild Hunt would also leave behind a specific dog, and the dog would live in your house for 1 year. And you couldn't get rid of it. And then, it would keep coming back even if you tried to get rid of it. Sure. And it would literally just lay at the hearth trying to take, the first bite of everything that came out of there. And you just had to deal with that for, a whole year.
Okay. Well, I mean, It could be worse. They could have left one of those horses.
Yeah, right? They could have left a 2-legged horse.
Yeah.
Or an 8 one. So... in the areas where the hunt is seen but not heard, typically the forest would go dead silent. And you would all of a sudden hear whining and faint dog barks, and then it would be very, very loud all at once. And oftentimes you would hear horns as well.
Mm-hmm.
And also some people believe that if you died a violent death, or if you were an quote unquote unchristian babe, you would die, when you died, you would join the Wild Hunt and, roam the lands on 8-legged horses forever.
Yeah. That's a bit much. Also, being in a place that has a bunch of sound, all of a sudden significantly less sound, pure nightmares.
And then all the sound.
I don't even care about what happens after the sound goes away. It's the sound going away, most terrifying part. Because then some shit's gonna happen, bro. That's horror movie 101. Yeah. Which also leads you to wonder, did horror movies take it from the hunt? Is that what we're getting here?
I definitely think that there are some horror movies.
Do they know about it or some stuff?
Yeah, I definitely think there are some horror movies taking their cues from the Wild Hunt.
We watched a movie that had the Wild Hunt in it, starring Nicolas Cage, where he was an assassin with a suit on that had those explosions. Remember, he was being followed or chased or whatever by the Wild Hunt in there.
Yeah,
I mean, they were what's that called? They were road warriors kind of people. This particular Wild Hunt. But man, what the heck is the name of that movie? There was a whole thing about time being stopped, and he was trying to save that
Prisoners
daughter.
of Ghostland.
Prisoners of Ghostland. Boy, let me tell you what. You want to watch a whole ass movie, and as soon as the credits roll, you have no clue what you just watched, and 2 hours of your life just flashed away. Watch this movie. It's not a bad movie. It's just it doesn't make any sense.
Oh, he also gets his at least one ball blown off.
It's true. He does. Yeah.
Very interesting movie.
It's a weird movie. But he's being hunted by the Wild Hunt in that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of places that you can kind of take the Wild Hunt.
Also not a Christmas movie.
Oh, yeah, definitely not a Christmas movie.
No, that's not
there's a lot of places that you can kind of take the Wild Hunt, and especially looking at horror movies. When I was reading through all of the material on this, I was like, oh my gosh, what if the Headless Horseman, Ichabod Crane, Sleepy Hollow, if that is based off of the Wild Hunt? And also thinking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, low key Wild Hunt.
Hunt adjacent.
Yeah.
Hunt adjacent.
But also this might be something that is similar to say the flood myth, where you find a representation of this in cultures throughout the world. So it may not be,
it's
derivative.
It's the dragons of hunts. Yeah.
Yeah, the dragons of hunt. Speaking of dragons, we're going to talk about Jacob Grimm and the Wild Hunt. You know who Jacob Grimm is?
Wrote a bunch of fairy tales.
Yeah, he's the fairy tale guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he is the fairy tale guy.
I just guessed that. I did not know his first name was Jacob. I assumed it was something significantly more old-timey. So when you said Jacob Grimm, I was like, I'm just going to make a Grimm fairy tales joke. Don't know who this bloke is.
Oh my gosh, this whole time you didn't know who he was? I've been talking about this guy for like
I know
days.
who Grimm of Grimm's fairy tales is. I didn't know that his first name was Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob Grimm. And the Wild Hunt. So Jacob Grimm not only wrote a bunch of like fairy tales, particularly those that we even recognize now, but he also compiled tons and tons of mythology and folklore resources. And in particular, in his 1835 book called Teutonic Mythology Volume 3, Grimm spends quite a few pages discussing the Furious Host, aka the Wild Hunt. And he's sort of the first person to really coin this term, the Wild Hunt, which makes him quite notable. But also, like, at the time that he did this, there wasn't really any research on it. So he was kind of pioneering this sort of folklore research with the Wild Hunt. And there haven't really been others to sort of go back further, or there weren't really anybody further back in time that had done this. Like sometimes we can find information from the Romans about this sort of stuff when they went to go and tour Europe. P.S. They were horrified by the things that they found. From the Celts to the Gauls to the Norse to the Vikings, they were
whole nightmare people.
The Romans were like, I'm not going to cross that forest again. No fucking thanks. We'll just make a city there and then we'll just send outcasts there. Yeah. So So Jacob Grimm had a particularly interesting quote that I wanted to read you guys about this that has to do with the Wild Hunt and also kind of where the Christianization of Europe takes things. So here it is. The Christians had not so quickly nor so completely renounced their faith in the gods of their fathers that those imposing figures could all at once drop out of their memory. Obstinately clung to by some, they were merely assigned a new position more in the background. The former god lost his sociable character, his near familiar features, and he assumed the aspect of a dark and dreadful power that still had a certain amount of influence left. His hold lost upon men and their ministry, he wandered and hovered in the air, a specter and a devil. So that's a pretty dope quote.
It's a dope quote.
Very into it. The god that he's talking about is Odin. And Grimm notes that the term wild hunt denotes like a nocturnal hunt. And if it's led by a man, it's usually boisterous, so it's loud, even though the forest may be silent. If it's led by a woman like Diana or like Perchta, it's stately and kind of more reserved, not as loud and boisterous. But another meaning for the wild hunt is an army, perhaps heading to war. And because he's talking about Odin in this previous quote, and Odin happens to be the father of hosts, and a host is another name for an army, let's talk about Odin's role. So throughout the areas that the stories of the Wild Hunt come from, we hear plenty of tales of howling wind preceding Odin and his entourage for the Wild Hunt. He may hunt anytime the wind howls, but especially during the 12 nights from Christmas to 12th night. In general, you can learn more about Odin in Modern Odinism, which is episode 25, but we're going to talk about some things that we didn't talk about in that episode.
Yeah, this is a little bit more Wild Hunt specific.
Yeah.
Episode 25 was Modern Odinism, so more about like heathenry and those things. Yeah.
So there are many different names associated with the leader of the Wild Hunt throughout basically all of Europe. And most of them are eerily similar for epithets of Odin. And some of them say Odin. And some of them say Wotan, who is the sort of more German version of Odin. But like it's pretty easy to see these lines sort of being drawn, that it's him. And a story from Germany that I particularly love tells us about a tipsy peasant walking home from a tavern. So this peasant, he's walking through a forest and it's dark. He's maybe heading home to his wife and kids. It's a little too late. And from the heavens, a tall man on a white horse, Odin, swoops down and lands in the road. Odin asks the peasant, "Hey boy, are you strong? Grab this chain and we'll see which one of us can pull the hardest. If you lose, you got to come with me though." So the peasant grabs the chain. Odin flies upwards.
Should not have done that.
Yeah. Odin flies upwards, and the peasant decides real fast to tie his end of the chain around the trunk of a big oak tree. And Odin, as he's flying upwards, cannot budge this chain. So while he starts to fly down, the peasant quickly undoes the chain. Odin asks the peasant, once he lands, if he tied the end of the tree. And the peasant's like, "Nah, bro."
Yeah. 100% me.
All me all day.
Yeah.
These guns.
I eat 8 raw eggs every single morning. Ka-chow. Whatever those people are into.
So Odin tells him they'll go another round. As Odin flies up again, the peasant ties the chain around the tree again. This time, the tree is cracking and twisting as Odin's horse is struggling to fly upwards. And the peasant is starting to worry now that this tree isn't going to hold. And now he's going to have to go with Odin and join the wild hunt. But the tree held its ground. As Odin flies back down, the peasant very quickly undoes the chain, and Odin tells the peasant, "Many's the man I've made mine, but you are the first that's held out against me, and you shall have a reward." With that, Odin ascends on his horse and starts the hunt again, and the peasant could hear Odin cry, "Hallo! Halla halla! Wol wol!" And as the peasant starts to walk away, thoroughly horrified by what just happened.
Yeah. Barely made it out of that alive.
Yeah, a deer thuds to the ground. Odin then lands, leaps off his horse, and says, "Thou shalt have some blood and a hindquarter to boot." The peasant tells him he doesn't have anything to carry all this stuff in, and Odin tells the peasant to take off his boot. Odin pours blood into the boot and gives the peasant the boot back along with a hindquarter from the deer and tells him to walk with blood and flesh to his wife and child. So terrified again.
Oh, Odin also, he dresses this deer. This whole deer falls to the ground from the sky. Already too much. And then Odin comes down and goes like, "What's up? Let's field dress this deer." Shoopity shoop. Done style. Right?
Yeah.
Also, for like a modern audience that isn't aware, blood is like a food stuff of incredible value in the old days. Like, I know most Americans don't eat like blood pudding or like cook with blood or do anything like that. But like back then, you don't waste that shit.
Very nutritious.
Also, blood pudding's delicious. Give it a try. I thoroughly love blood pudding.
Yeah. So the peasant is terrified. And after a bit,
rightfully so,
all he can think walking home is how heavy this is, how heavy this boot is, how heavy the hindquarters are. And he's trudging on, barely enough strength to carry it. And it gets heavier and heavier as he gets closer to his destination. Exhausted, sweaty, he finally arrives home to find out that the boot was filled with gold and the hindquarter was actually a leather pouch filled with silver.
Tricky Odin.
Yeah. So he is in a variety of other wild hunt stories.
So if you beat Odin in tug of war, boots full of gold and a butt full of a rump full of silver, it sounds like a fair trade.
I would definitely trade that.
Yeah, I mean, but you got to trick Odin.
You got to beat him in tug of war.
You risk getting caught and getting trampled by 8 legs of horse. So,
that's fair.
Bam.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways that Odin shows up in the wild hunt stuff. Mm-hmm. Mostly he shows up in ways that are very similar to this story. So not necessarily that he's like, I'll give you a magical
he
gift.
just shows up hunting, picks a shenan with a mortal, and then either distributes some sort of horrifying nightmare because the mortal lost or got caught being a cheater. Or, bestows upon him some sort of a gift because that mortal somehow bested him through an elaborate ruse of some kind.
Yeah.
So, standard issue god stuff.
Pretty
right?
standard issue god
You can pretty much
stuff.
say that about every god has just a grip of stories about doing a shenan.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And there are stories of the wild hunt that go everywhere from Russia in the east, all the way to England and France in the west, and as far south as the Alps in Italy. So we see a huge range of places that we see these. And like I said before, sometimes it's not Odin, sometimes it's somebody else, but all of these stories work in a very similar way. Don't be walking at home late at night, and if you hear all of a sudden nothing and then large sounds, pray to your various gods and sort of take over it. So the Wild Hunt is a really interesting aspect of like
the Yuletide like season. Greater like mythos.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So you can really add these sort of into practice with celebrating Santa or Krampus or Odin or, whoever it is that you really want to celebrate this season, because a lot of celebratory things that happen during the season sort of follow some very specific paths, but also there's a lot of generalities. So telling stories and, having a good time, and it's a fun way to sort of tell a ghost story during Yuletide.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So we kind of already talked about how we celebrate Yule, in that this year we've been decorating.
Yeah.
We also normally do
we do like a little Yule ritual.
Yeah, like a little ritual, a little feast.
Yeah, a little feast. This year, because we watched, we caught up on the holiday seasons of Great British Bake Off. We're making a smorgastarta, which is
it's a savory cake.
It's a savory cake. Yeah.
So it's basically
was it Swedish?
Swedish,
yeah,
also
Swedish.
Iceland, Finland, all those places.
It's like a multi-tiered cake, but you make breads,
but made out of sandwiches.
Yeah, it's essentially a cake made out of sandwiches.
Yeah.
And like obviously in between the layers is like your sandwich stuff, whatever you like, meat and like dairy product you want in there, and then your frosting on the outside of the cake is cream cheese mixed with
sour cream and
mayo.
And then it's like decorated with like herbs and vegetables and stuff.
Yeah, totally. So it's like a fun savory cake thing. So we're like doing that, and so we do like a food, and we do like a bunch of decorations. And like we've been watching pretty much nonstop only Christmas movies or like holiday movies.
But we don't have rules about that like we do.
It's not the same. Yeah, it's not the same as Halloween. Halloween is like a special place. Although we're like we spent literally all day today watching horror Christmas movies because we are huge horror fans.
Yeah.
But so we've been doing that. We found if you're looking for like a good background noise for your Yule celebration, or honestly, while you're just doing stuff around the house, we have found that there is a myriad of like 11-hour long like playlist videos on YouTube that just have like a beautifully decorated like like set piece
just like
as the video, like ambient backgrounds, like scene for the video, and then they just do like jazzy Christmas tunes or whatever, which is awesome. There is some dope Yule music out there, but it's like a little bit harder to find. But like definitely like look out for that, because I really love good Yule music.
Yeah.
You know?
And for those of you that are asking, because we get asked this question every year, is do we celebrate Christmas? And that answer is yes. Yeah. We celebrate Christmas. We also kind of sort of celebrate Hanukkah. We have some people that are very close to us that do celebrate Hanukkah primarily, so we also tend to celebrate with them.
Like, Hanukkah stuff with them. And we do like Christmas stuff, but that's primarily just because it's like the day when the whole family gets together.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But also for us, Christmas is not like a Christian-centric holiday.
Yeah.
Especially as Americans.
Oh, Christmas ain't got nothing to do with
Christmas is about
Jesus,
Santa Claus and capitalism, guys.
Yeah.
So
Christmas is Coca-Cola and America. freedom.
It kind of is. So we celebrate Christmas in like pretty fairly American ways by like having the family over and having food and hanging out and doing gifts and that sort of thing. So do we celebrate Christmas? Yes, but we don't celebrate it in a secular Christian kind of way.
Yeah, like we set up a tiny town, but that's just tiny people.
And the tiny town does have a church in it. And every year I pull out that tiny town and I'm like, someday I'm going to paint this into a heathen church.
But
but it's not this year.
But
maybe next year.
We do a Christmas tree, but that's also like a Yule tree. So like that shit don't count for nothing. We decorate the house with like garlands and such like that, and like a bunch of natural stuff. We generally always have like we always get like what are these called?
Poinsettias.
Poinsettia. We get poinsettias or some sort of other like seasonal plant. To have in the house. And we do like mulled wine and like all that kind of stuff. Like ritual wise, we do Yule rituals. But like Christmas is still the day for like family get-togethers and all that kind of stuff. And like, Santa Claus ain't nothing to do with Jesus. So we do like the Santa stuff and like watch Santa movies and all that kind of shenan. But we also don't like, we're not like anti the like standard big church Christian Christmas movies and stuff like that. Midnight Mass is still fun. So I like going to Midnight Mass when I have the opportunity to.
Yeah. This time of year can be really difficult for people, especially if they're in the closet or if they don't really have any other pagan or heathen people in their life, with trying to kind of understand like where to go with this, living in a country that is primarily following a different religion. And we totally get that. There's also a lot of gatekeeping from people talking about how if you're a heathen or a pagan, you can't celebrate this or you have to celebrate that. And, it's the thing that we always say. So not only do you not have to celebrate on the day, but you can celebrate whatever the heck you want. Like we have friends and we've talked to people that are Christian witches, and we've talked to people who are eclectic and they take a little bit of everything, and we've talked to people that are very specific to a tradition where they're Hellenists and they worship only the Greek gods. So we've talked to a lot of people who have their belief structure in a lot of different ways. So this is a good time to really think about tolerance and acceptance, as far as when other people are talking about the ways that they celebrate. But whether or not they're being tolerant and acceptant of you is another story. But also if you are someone who is in the broom closet, this is, there are still ways for you to celebrate. And, just because Santa and Christmas trees doesn't mean that you're not a real witch.
I mean, Santa's an omnipresent, omniscious, time-traveling, space-manipulating god. Clearly, if you just follow the power set built up by his music. And most Christmas decorations are just either a byproduct of capitalism, a la Christmas tree lights, or just like actually stolen from pagan beliefs. So like even celebrating like full-on Christmas is still a wee bit pagan.
And
as it were.
You can always listen to modern hidden heathenry and modern holidays. It's confusing the two show episodes.
That's fair.
Where we talk more about the heathen links to certain things that may give you some interesting sort of cocktail party type things to say. But to all of you who are listening, just embrace whatever it is that makes you feel happy about this season.
It's a season of being
and don't
awesome.
feel like you have to be pressed into a mold in particular.
Yeah, definitely. And for our patrons, keep an eye out. We will have a little extra zhuzh for you coming this Yule miss.
Yeah, a little something for your stocking.
A little something zhuzh there. So check an eye out. Keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
So next up, normally we would do like a couple of spells. That's what we were doing in our 101s. Or in our 102 series, we did a ritual for each one of the blots or sabbats. So what we've decided to do for 103 is provide a suggested reading piece that we used for research in the process. And by we, I primarily mean her, because
it's mostly
she's the
me.
adult.
I am the one doing that part.
She's the research one. And so this is a reading suggestion that we used in the research for this episode of the podcast, as well as sort of falls in the category of something that should be easy to gain access to, if not, when available, like outrightly free. And to sort of like further, like for you to read or study to further your own like knowledge and like understanding and practice, so we could all improve together. Just the little bits that she told me about this particular piece of information, this suggested reading. I like, once I'm done with the book that I'm currently reading, I think I'm gonna immediately pick up reading this, even though it's like super long and technically volume 3. So the suggested reading for Yule 103 is the Teutonic Mythology Volume 3 by Jacob Grimm. So the bits that you used were
pages 917 to 950. That is specifically what we are recommending that you read.
Yeah, that's specifically on the Wild Hunt and that bit.
And I have
read the whole thing gonna be worth your time.
Definitely looks to be great. However, I have
based
not
on volume
read
3, I would probably say volume 1 and 2 are maybe also gonna be dope.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna start at volume 1. I'm probably gonna get into this like at the beginning of the year. And so I would say if you want to like kind of get into it a little bit more, obviously if you've read these and have an opinion, let us know or whatever. But I would like to read through volumes 1, 2, and 3 and potentially do some little info sort of video like things on them at some point in time during the next year. So I would say like keep an eye out for those on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But where were you able to find this?
So, first of all, I have not read the whole Teutonic Mythology volumes 1, 2, or 3. Only that bit from pages 917 to 950, which is specifically what we're recommending that you read. When you pull up this particular item, the page number is basically from page 1 starts in volume 1 and then it just continues through. So when you pick up volume 3, you're like, this is only like 400 pages. How do I have page 917? It's because the other pages are in the first one. So I found this on the Internet Archive, which is a free resource that has tons and tons of books available. It's also part of the Wayback Machine. If any of you are familiar with that, say so in the chat, because that's a fun one. And the Internet Archive is located on archive.org. You will find a link to this in the show notes and in the description below for those of you that are watching / listening on YouTube.
Yep.
The Internet Archive is not easy to search. So I highly recommend going to the link that is in the show notes. That will take you directly to where it is, because even though I know how to search it, for me to find the thing that I wanted to find took me like probably a good 15 or 20 minutes of trying to figure out how the heck their search engine works, because it's honestly kind of a nightmare. But they are free. You can probably also find this book at a variety of libraries. You may be able to find it online in other forms. You may be able to find it audio. I do want to warn you, though, while we did suggest this reading, there are portions of this text that are in untranslated German and Latin, and sometimes French. I am familiar with all 3 languages, not so much so that I can converse in them or very easily translate mid-1800s context into there. So if I do recommend skipping those pieces. If they're talking in a language you don't understand, just skip it. Just keep going.
Yeah.
No need to kind of pressure yourself there. You may be able to get what you're looking for out of Google Translate, but Google Translate is kind of notoriously unreliable for that sort of thing.
It's iffy. Yeah. So either way, this suggested reading will be linked down below. And in the show notes. So check that out.
Yep.
Yeah, check that out. It's going to be a good read. All right, so next up is correspondences.
Yeah, and these are correspondences specifically for Yule. We're just going to hit you with a couple of things to refresh your memory. And as always, the full correspondences are on the Book of Shadows pages, which you can find on our Patreon. Our Patreon, I think, has Yule 102 correspondences.
Yule 102,
okay. So we've got at least these correspondences somewhere. So animals associated with Yule are particularly deer and stags. Colors are gold and green, red and gold and green, red, silver, white, blue, all those Christmassy type colors. Stones for the season are bloodstone, quartz, snowflake obsidian, and anything sort of red or green. Plants, all of your evergreens, all of your Christmas spices.
Yep.
Also, don't forget about ivy, mint, and rosemary. Foods, all of the foods of the season. Don't forget about apples and candy and cider and meats and teas, hot chocolate, mulled wine. Dark beer, ham. We talk a lot about Yule boar / ham in Yule 101, so you can get more info there. Deities associated with this season are kind of really all over the place. So you've got like deities about the sun, like Apollo or Amaterasu. I totally said that wrong. So there's also Balder. I'm just going to skip it entirely. Brigid, Demeter, the Green Man, the Holly King, Odin, of course, Parchta, and as we learned today, Artemis. Yeah. So next up, we have a pub chat.
Next up is pub chat. Yeah. That's right. Next up is pub chat. And then after that, episode 49, bringing in the new year with magic on a budget.
Yeah.
Let's save some nickels and do some magic.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much what we have to do at this point in time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So those are what's coming up next. We want to give a special shout out to our patrons.
Yep.
If you would like to support us, you can join our Patreon. We do Book of Shadows pages for each one of these. We do what do we do? We do Book of Shadows pages. We do like the cell phone wallpapers and such like that.
Yep.
We have like a Discord chat and all. We got all the features.
And we're gonna be bringing in some special Patreon only videos.
Yeah, we're gonna start adding more to Patreon this upcoming year.
Starting with Yule.
Yeah, starting with Yule. So starting early. But so we'd like to thank our patrons.
We'll guarantee you'll love it.
I'm not gonna do that. You're supposed to scare them into watching it. That's what we learned from that movie. Is that if you give somebody a heart attack, then you get free publicity or something like that? I don't know.
You don't pun people into watching it?
No. You scare people into watching it. Yeah.
What about dad joke people into watching it?
That's scary enough. That's scary enough for me.
Oof.
Yeah, boom. So, thank our patrons, Alan, Miranda, Helena, and Alexa. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And for everybody, happy Yule.
Yeah.
Happy Yule.
Whenever you're listening to this.
Yeah, whatever it is, have a happy Yule.
Yeah.
No problem. Backwards in time, happy Yule. Don't worry about it.
All the multiverse of happy Yules.
Infinite Yule.
Yeah.
So caught in the hellscape where Yule is every single day. Like that thing that we watched earlier
like Nightmare
today.
Before Christmas also.
Yeah. Either way, I've been John Norgrove. This has been Julie Norgrove. This has been the Horn
and Cauldron
podcast. And we will catch you guys next time. Stay magical, folks.
Yeah. And don't forget, breathe in self-confidence and breathe out self-doubt.